All right, guys, we're back again. We're back again. What is up? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Drop a comment once you're in the chat. Drop a comment once you're in the chat. Apodacy, what's up, man? What's up? What's up? Also, let me know how's the bandwidth going, because I'm obviously, as you can tell, not my usual spot. It's not necessarily a great spot, but it's the best I got to work with. All hail Dark Brandon. Yeah, oh my god, man. Oh my god. Yeah, we got some crazy stuff going on. We got some crazy, crazy stuff going on. Once you're in, drop a comment in the chat. Drop a comment in the chat once you're in. We will do this. Drop a comment in the chat. Once we get to 20, as usual, we'll get started. Yes, this is light water scientific, which is deuterium depleted water. I do highly recommend it. It's really incredible stuff for your mitochondrial health. And I'll just give you, I've actually mixed it with reverse osmosis, so it's not pure deuterium depleted water. And generally, that's what you're recommended to do. You don't want to, well, I mean, you can if you want to, but I think you get a better ROI on it because it's not cheap stuff to mix it with other water, especially because the deuterium depleted water isn't mineralized. So I have reverse osmosis as well, so I mix the two together. I'm not really stickler for details with it. Anywhere from, I just kind of mix it in at whatever proportions, anywhere from, 1:3, 1:4 ratio, whatever. But yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, light water, deuterium depleted water is really good for your mitochondrial health and is really implicated in longevity. So if you want to make it to the Great Awakening, if you want to make it to the Golden Age, recommend you do everything in your power to treat your body right. And you don't have to get a lot of it. I think, honestly, you can make a little go a long way. If you can drop your average water consumption from 150 parts per million deuterium to 130 parts per million deuterium, you're going to have a good time with it. But yeah, anyway, we're almost there. We're almost there at 19. Drop a comment in the chat and we'll get going. We'll get moving with this stuff. It's a pretty exciting time. It's a pretty exciting time, guys. Do you guys feel the energy? Do you feel what's coming? Can you feel what's coming down the line? Can you guys feel what's coming down the line? We've been waiting a long time for this, but now you know it's on the precipice. So, the deep breath before the plunge. I know we said that before, but this time it's different. You know what I mean? It's different. Thanks. I appreciate the lamp compliment. Yeah, if you guys can see here, I'm doing this from my bed. I don't have any private space, so got to work with what I have. All right, we'll jump in. We got 33 here. A little nice gematria number. A little nice numerology going on. So, the main thing that I wanted to talk about today, we're going to do some geopolitics stuff, and then we're going to get to the meat of the matter, which of course was last night's speech and what that means for where things are going. I'm going to start with the geopolitics stuff as a little aperitif. Frank Kelton saying you're scared for what's happening in the stocks and European energy prices. All I can tell you, man, is you haven't seen anything yet. I mean, when we're talking about this being bad, we're talking about it being bad. like catastrophic. You know Michael Burry? You guys know Michael Burry? Probably some of you do, some of you don't recognize the name, but Michael Burry was the Big Short. You know, if you the guy that Christian Bale plays in the movie, he was the savant who was able to figure out that the um, mortgage-backed securities were all dog shit, and he was the one who told them to short the mortgage market because they were all going to go bust when the contracts went up. So now you know what Michael Burry said? Michael Burry has sold all of his stocks except for prison stocks. He sold all of his stocks except for prison stocks. Now, you know, we don't give financial advice here. You guys are all out here to take care of yourself. But, you know, I haven't been one I'm not trying to make myself into someone who makes good financial decisions because I've definitely made mistakes. I lost money in the crypto market. Obviously, I had those bets. But I did sell the stocks at the last fall because I was jumping the gun a bit. I mean, it wasn't turned out not to be like terrible timing. Like perfect timing would have been November, and I was out in September. I missed that last big run up, but yeah, it's gonna go. I mean, he says stocks are gonna go down 50%. That's what Michael Burry says. He says that's you see a good likelihood of that. Jamie Dimon has essentially said that. He said that there's a 30% chance of this being worse than a recession. You know what's worse than a recession? Yeah, this is going to be as bad or worse than the Great Depression. So, and remember, just because it's the Great Depression, it doesn't mean that everybody in this chat is screwed. A lot of us are going to do okay, and you know, honestly, it becomes on a relative basis. Some of us will do well, but I think it's over half of Americans have less than $1,000 in their bank account. This is going to be bad. It's going to be really, really bad, and what's going to happen in America is going to look like nothing compared to Europe. I mean, I just don't I think it's only like the last week or two. I don't know if the Euros got back from vacation and decided to think about reality, but I don't really know what to say. I mean, what are you supposed to do when your energy prices go up 5 to 10 times? It's not just a matter of heating your home. It's the fact that kills businesses. I mean, Germany is going to deindustrialize all of its businesses. The businesses are already shutting their doors. Now, there's temporary right now. But I mean, temporary, eventually it's permanent. So what's going to happen, I mean, to the welfare state in Europe? They don't have any idea what's coming. Most of them don't have any idea what's coming. It's going to be a really, really rough winter, and it looks like it's going to be a really cold winter too. So add insult to injury. And that's all coming right now. So it's all coming to a head. This old world is on its way out. The beginning of the end of it started with COVID. I mean, it's been going on for a while, but we started to see the shock to our old way of living with COVID, and now this is going to close the door on it. So what's going to happen? Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, but I want to mark something very significant for a bunch of you right now with what's going to happen in the next 2.5 hours. So in 2.5 hours, after the 2020 election, for 22 months after the 2020 election, the ballots had to be preserved. And then starting at midnight, September 3rd at midnight, the remaining ballots can now legally be destroyed. So that means that in the next 2 hours or so, we will no longer be able to officially through official ballot recounts and checks go back to the 2020 election. That doesn't mean that nothing can happen, but it does mean that any sort of standard way of going and dealing with it is done. Now, I know, and there have been some preservation orders in place in some locations, but like, let's be honest here, it's not happening. Not especially not in the places that it's important to happen in. It's not going to happen. So this is done. Now, why is this relevant? Some people who have been looking at the Law of War manual and have been looking for certain trigger points, if the military is allowed to take action, one of the key elements is that there is no civilian remedy to the situation. So starting in a few hours, there is no longer civilian remedy. Now, if you think that I think that the military is going to step in tomorrow and arrest Biden, I'm not saying that. That's not going to happen. If that happens, that'd be pretty wild. It's not going to happen. But I do think it becomes a trigger point when a bunch of events start to go into motion. And I think Biden's speech the other night was a clear indication of that. They are running out of time. They're running out of time, and everything is FBI entered the chat. Well, the feds know look, if the feds want to join and watch this, I mean, they already know plenty about me. So got nothing to hide. What are these little hidden things though? What's this all about? Anyway, we are going to be looking at some interesting situations coming. We're going to look at some very, very interesting situations coming. So I believe that last night's speech was designed to do one thing, and that was a last-ditch effort to try to provoke more partisan fighting. Because I've said this multiple times, but I'm going to reiterate it. The only thing, they were never going to take over America because they never had the ability to take over America. They knew that there'd always be resistance in America. And so what they wanted to do was create a civil war that would destroy America. Because if the Civil War destroys America, then there's no, Davos, which is the people who are in Europe, they would have control over this permanently. They could sell off this country, and then they could, in the chaos of the collapse of the United States, be able to essentially build the kind of country that they wanted to build, right? Some sort of social credit country. So, but the issue is that they are not succeeding in being able to they're not succeeding in being able to create a civil war. People don't want it. I know that, like, you can go on Twitter, you see a lot of people talk about this and magnify it, but really look around you. Go look around you. Nobody in this country wants a civil war, really. I mean, the vast majority of people don't want it. They're not filled with hate towards each other. I mean, there's some divisions, there's a lot of resentment, but more and more people are leaving their team every day. More and more people every single day are like, enough's enough. What the hell is going on here? And so by waiting, we've recoalesced. After January 6th, after the 2020 election, there was an opportunity to create a civil war. The tensions were high enough that it could have happened. But at this point, by taking the route that they're doing, by trying to call Trump supporters, domestic terrorists, this is not going to work. It's not like, okay, that sort of 15% communist, whatever, support. Sure, they'll say that. They'll eat it up, whatever. But the reality is that your average liberal doesn't like that kind of talk. They maybe don't want to see a Republican in office, but they don't like this kind of stuff. They're very frustrated. They're very, very frustrated. And let's go even further. People are really frustrated with all the systems. that have been put in place. They know these systems aren't working. So, hello, Manteca Respector. What's up, man? Good night. Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Um, so they're looking extremely desperate. Now, there's some people who are saying, as usual, that this is like the white hats are completely in control, and that's why they have Biden looking the way he did with his screen behind him. I'm not so sure about this kind of stuff. I'm not so sure about it. I just think it creates too tight of a story. Whereas what I've always tried to say here is that you look at it from the higher view and you can see how one thing leads to another, but don't mistake that, which is more like God's plan, with some sort of man-made plan, conspiracy. Like, I can see that if somebody swerves because there's a person, in front of them, that they're going to hit that parked car. But that doesn't mean that, that it was a conspiracy between the person and the car to hit that parked car. You know what I mean? Like, it's maybe not a great analogy, but it's like you can see cause and effect, but it doesn't mean necessarily that it's all being controlled by people. And I think that's a really difficult thing that a lot of truthers have, is because they wake up to the fact that there are these patterns. They're like, cool, okay, we got these patterns, now let's follow this stuff. But then they get carried away with it and they start to think that everything is being orchestrated by the cabal. Like, I was talking about this the other day. That guy, Donnie Darko, he talks about all these significance with Trump, all these various numerology significance. Well, the cabal uses numerology because they're trying to mimic God. They're looking at the structure of the matrix, and they're trying to channel that energy for themselves. They try to change their, get their rituals to look a certain way. Yeah, J.L. Newman is saying it exactly. The pattern is God, though. So, because Trump has some sort of significance to his birth date and to certain things, they assume, I actually think in many ways it in itself is like a kind of cabal program, because it makes you think that the cabal are so mighty and powerful that they control every single thing. Whereas the reality, guys, is I think that we're waking up to them. I think that we can sniff them out pretty easily now, because the veneer is falling. And sure, I know that they have these extra plans. They're trying to prolong the game. After they get rid of this group, they allow this group to go. There's going to be, remnants who will try to do false awakenings and try to stay in power. Yeah, but we're prepared for this stuff. We're going to deal with it as it goes, because we can smell who has pure intention and who doesn't, because you can always tell by their fruits, and just because they might try to give us things, like, we'll be able to assess if they're giving with an agenda. Like, we're not stupid. We have to give ourselves more credit. We have to give ourselves more credit. So that's where things are going on the short term. But I think we're about to see some action, is what I'm trying to get to here. September is going to be a really big lead up. We now have a few cases about the vax, about the big conspiracy with Pfizer, that, Pfizer basically has, governments gave Pfizer complete immunity to anything possible against them, which is really debatable if that'll stand up in court, but we'll see. But it doesn't matter. We're about to enter the period of revelation, the apocalypse, the great revealing. That is what's happening this fall. That's what's happening this fall. And even in Ukraine, you can start to see this happen. I mean, they have this great Kherson counter-offensive, which, guys, is just, I have to tell you, this is some of the most disgusting stuff I've ever seen in my life. I mean, this is like what you would see at, like, Somme, the Battle of the Somme, or Verdun, where they are just sending thousands of soldiers across open fields without air support or really much artillery to just get slaughtered. I mean, they're being slaughtered. and they've taken like one village. There's a elite unit, the Transcarpathian Mountain Division. I forget the numbers of the insignias, but um, and I have to think that this must apply only to like a certain battalion or of it. But in Transcarpathia, they're now having, I think today, they had a day of mourning because the entire unit was killed. The entire unit was killed. I mean, it's just breathtaking. Right now, they're saying that the losses are in the thousands, but I think that the casualties have to be in the 10,000s right now. And then you have this insane plan. This insane plan. I mean, do you guys know what they were trying to do with the nuclear power station? I mean, I honestly couldn't believe it when I heard it. It was even hard for me to wrap my head around. What they were trying to do is when the IAEA inspectors were coming into this power station. By the way, for those who don't know, this is the Zaporozhye nuclear power station. So it's a nuclear power plant in Russian-controlled territory in Zaporozhye. And the Ukrainians have been shelling it nonstop. So you have these like hilarious little articles where they'll say, nuclear power plants being shelled, and the Russians need to like keep this plant safe. The Russians are risking the plant. It's like, well, who's shelling the plant? Like, well, we don't know who's shelling the plant. What do you mean? How do you? Of course, we know the Ukrainians are shelling the plant, but it's like, it's the same thing as before when you had like Ukrainian civilians killed in, like Ukrainian city shelled, civilians killed. And the way they write it, they make it seem like Russia's hitting Ukrainian civilians, but it's in Donetsk, which is the capital of the breakaway republic, which is backed by Russia. But the Ukrainians were shelling the civilians there, and then they'll say that Ukrainian civilians were shelled. So it makes it seem like Russia was doing it because it's against civil. I mean, it's just like unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So with this power station, and apparently British MI6 and special forces were involved with this, they sent this attack on the power station because finally the UN had sent inspectors there to monitor the safety of it, because Russia keeps saying, please send in inspectors because they keep shelling this place and this is bad. Like, Russia has good air defenses, but some shells are still getting through. And so what you come to find out is that the Ukrainians had this plan, and it apparently was hatched by Boris Johnson when Boris Johnson went to Kiev a few days ago, to hold the inspectors in the IAEA hostage. First off, they were going to claim that the Russians held them hostage, which would have made no sense, because the Russians would just say, we're not holding them hostage, and demand the release immediately. But the Ukrainians were essentially, maybe they were going to forget about that part of it, but their plan was to get the nuclear power station, hold the IAEA inspectors hostage, and then demand Russia leave Ukraine, or they would blow the nuclear reactor. So, I mean, it would have been this kind of like, it's like psychopathic. I mean, there's just no other way to think about this. They would have held UN inspectors hostage and threatened to blow a nuclear reactor in order to make sure the Russians left Ukraine. Which, of course, wouldn't have worked, but I mean, what kind of planet do you have to live on that you would be thinking in that way? You're not, I mean, these people are really beyond sick. So, at any rate, what of course happened is the Russians intercepted it and they slaughtered everybody and took a few prisoners. But the point here is that Ukrainian casualties have just been catastrophic. And now we have Taiwan has just received a weapons package. So are things going to blow up in China too? I mean, if you want to see the global economy really go down, we have the war in China, piggybacks on the back of the war in Ukraine. And it's happening all over. You now have like maybe a civil war breaking out in Iraq. Um, Within Pakistan, they have their own kind of Donald Trump situation with Imran Khan, and is everything going to fall apart there? I mean, the whole world is about to really go into chaos because as we get into this fall and winter, there's not going to be any energy in Europe, and Europe's going to start freezing, it's going to start deindustrializing. And in the States, you're going to start to see the markets collapse dramatically. And the Fed is going to continue to tighten. Now, those of you who watch this show regularly know that the what's good Diet Coke for life. Know that I've ascribed the Tom Longo's theory about the Fed and Wall Street being on the same faction together, and that they've turned against Davos. And I think all the signs point to that. I think Tom was really incredible that he was able to pick that apart. I know he said he got help from other people. Other people said it first, but very impressive. Well, look, Frank, it's not financial advice, but I mean, yeah, I would. If I was in the situation, I probably would have sold. I mean, I sold them already, but Michael, like I'll just say it again, Michael Burry, the Big Short, is sold all of his stocks. He thinks there's going to be a 50% drawdown. You do what you want with that information. I mean, what I want to say here is that this is a time period not to be greedy. Crypto is going to go down too. Now, what I will say, because crypto is tied to the stock market, but this is, I think, the question is right now everybody's looking for, like, they need to keep strengthening the dollar. They're going to keep raising rates, but you're going to get to a point where they're then going to, how do I put this? The dollar in its current form is not going to stay strong forever. So there's going to be a point when, right after the collapse, probably once we get to like Q4 this year, end of Q4, like end of year, turn of next year, that we may start to hit the bottom of the market. Because I think that most of the blood is going to happen in Q3, Q4 this year, especially after Q3 reporting mid-October. So there is going to be a desire to move towards, because they might start to print heavy amounts because they just have to at that point, because we'll be in such a massive depression. At that point, you're going to want to get off the dollar, and you're going to want to move to things like crypto, right? Crypto, gold, silver, etc. But you do your own research, and a lot of this stuff is going to be about timing. I can just tell you right now, it's not what I'm doing. Like right now, I'm just stacking. Like I don't feel comfortable moving anything in anything else. Like I don't think it's. I think we're going to just see more and more drawdowns, and there's no consistent safe havens at the moment. Even like energy in the short term, depending on where you're at, it, like in global markets, it may go down because it's a global recession. So this is like what I've heard from my investor people. I don't want to say my investor friends, but from the investors that I follow, is that they're basically saying this is like category 5 storm. Don't try to be the person who makes tons of money in it. And if you're not like a really, really good investor or really, really good swimmer, just try to stay alive. Try not to get wrecked, because it's going to wipe out so many people. You gain advantage just by not getting destroyed in the whole process. Jeff, are you thinking I'm gonna break my pack? Look, I'm not gonna drink until Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna drink till Thanksgiving. That's just how it is. That's the rule I set for myself. So don't even try this, Jeff. Don't even try um, to tempt me. Let's see here. So with all that said, I mean, I'm happy to answer some questions. I think that's probably the right route. Right now, I'll just kind of do a general thing for you, Jake. You said one of my thoughts on the World Economic Forum. Well, they're pieces of shit. And when I say Davos, I'm talking about the World Economic Forum. They have this plan to take over the world, a bunch of European old bloodline families who want to control the world. And they want to reduce the population of the world. And they want people who are left to be slaves, basically, and to eat bugs. And yeah, I mean they're a satanic death cult. That's what they are. They're a satanic death cult, and they're losing. And something that occurred to me the other day is that, well, didn't they want the European economy to crash for the Great Reset? And the answer is yes, they did, but they wanted the whole world's economy to collapse in tandem, and they wanted to be able to control the collapse. So, for instance, there's some people say, well, Russia was in on it because look, Russia's facilitated the Great Reset, but no, Russia didn't play its role correctly because Russia was supposed to also be destroyed. Russia was supposed to be destroyed first. Now you're supposed to have in this war, Russia's economy collapses, but then Europe also isn't going to have the gas or anything in the meantime. So Europe would go down, but they'd all be going down. It would be pain all over the place, right? That was supposed to be the intention. It wasn't supposed to be the intention that Russia not only survived, it thrived, it's gotten stronger. Because that creates a big problem because that creates the structure of a bloc to fight against them. And that's really what's been happening. Russia in many ways, the fact that Russia survived has in many ways helped China from going along with this because China has been kind of playing both sides. And I think that there are separate factions within China, some that want one, some that want the other. But the fact that Russia's done so well has strengthened the hand of the people in China who do not want to go along with the Great Reset and that are building this new bloc against them. And so Davos was betrayed by them. And then you have, on the other hand, you have Trump and you have Wall Street who have also decided, you know what, Great Reset's not going to be so good. We're not going to make any more money. And honestly, this stuff is maybe a little bit psychopathic, a little bit too much for us. We like to make money, we like to steal money, but maybe we're not into that whole like child rape thing. Maybe, maybe they are, but at any rate, they're not as diehard as these Davos people. So the way to look at this, America has a lot of karma that it owes to the world for all the stuff that it's done to the world. But Europe is the real epicenter of this. The U.S. was hijacked by Europe, by this Davos crowd. And that's, I think, on an energetic level, why Europe's going to suffer the most. So, ask some questions, guys. Yeah, Jose, I do have the bottle picked out. Don't you worry about that. I also got a tasting as well the next day. A tasting I made last year and I haven't gotten to yet of Italian Reds. But I'll enjoy myself Thanksgiving and the day after, which is my dad's birthday. But then I'm not going to drink again for like a week or something like that. Like I don't want it, like I said, I don't want to go back to how I was before. And just keep it as a, special occasion habit, once a week. Once or twice a week. All right. Hey, Pat, in the USA, do you still have COVID restrictions? Uh, you know, I'm just gonna say no. I think that technically you still have to wear a mask in like healthcare facilities, but that's the only one that I know of. I know if you're not vaccinated and you're not a U.S. citizen or resident, you can't come to the country still, which is pretty crazy. Let's see here. Any comments on how this plays out in Canada, similar to U.S.? Well, Canada's in a much worse state because Canada is completely controlled by the World Economic Forum, and there really aren't any. There's hardly any resistance in Canada. I mean, I guess you have that guy Pierre Poilievre, which I don't know much about, but Alberta and with its Saskatchewan seems to be the epicenter of resistance. But I mean, the reality is that Canada is a lost cause. I don't mean that to say you shouldn't fight. I just mean to say that the U.S. is the country that is going to throw off the yoke, and that's going to create the cascade effect. But on its own, Canada couldn't do this. Um, but what happens in the U.S. will spread first to Canada. I mean, it's going to happen in Europe too, but the U.S. and Canada are really one people that have been separated artificially, and what happens in the U.S. is going to affect Canada. Just as what happens in Canada with the trucker stuff was going to be responded to in the U.S. I don't want to count the Canadians out. I mean, that trucker convoy thing, like we shouldn't, diminish that. That was really substantial. But there just aren't as many awake people in Canada as there are in the States. I'm not sure. It probably, you probably have, you have a lot more, you just don't have as many awake. Let's put it that way. But you have a lot more resistance in there. But what I think is going to happen in the end is that, and when I say the end, I mean like fast forward 2 years, into the second half of this decade, the United States will have to be reconstituted. There's going to be a constitutional convention. There's going to be obviously a reaffirmation of the Constitution, but there's going to be amendments. It's going to be a restructuring of the country. That's why Trump is the last president. He really is the last president of the first American Republic. The second American Republic will look slightly different. And I think that in the second American Republic will be the United States and Canada together as one country. And I think also Greenland will be part of it. I just see that happening because there's going to be a great unifying effect across the world for throwing off the yoke of these people. But the U.S. and Canada are going to be going through it so acutely that I think that we will start to feel more like one people afterwards. And I think based on the changing global dynamics, U.S. is not going to be an empire anymore, but you're going to have these sort of spheres of influence. And it seems to make sense for me that U.S. and Canada will be like, okay, well, this is our kind of sphere. So that's kind of how I see things playing out. Yeah, I actually got to get on Tom's subscription. Yeah, they're the Fifth Reich, Fourth Reich. I mean, Klaus Schwab's father was a Nazi. I mean, it just pretty much says all it is. Pat, got to give us a rec for what bottle to get for Thanksgiving for us wine normies. Okay, well, I usually tell people this around Thanksgiving, but I'll just give you a teaser now. If you're having traditional American Thanksgiving dinner with like turkey, stuffing, etc., Riesling, Gewürztraminer, you actually want to go for like white wines, especially white wines with a little bit more body and maybe some semi-sweet. It goes really well with it. If you're not going to go to that direction, I would go for like a Pinot or a Côte d'Aron. But I wouldn't do something like heavier reds, like Malbec, Cabernet, tannin heavy reds. I wouldn't do that. Heavy tannins don't go well with Thanksgiving meal. So you want low tannin reds, which are going to be Grenache, Pinot Noir, or you're going to want to do kind of like semi-sweet whites. Yeah, Jeff. I'm just going through this stuff now. But yeah, his father owned a a Swiss company. So he was a Nazi, but he was a industrialist who produced, I believe, airplane turbines, if I'm correct about that. And from what I also have heard, that the labor was derived from a concentration camp. So tells you all you need to know. J.L. Newman predicting Trump arrest still. So I do think he is going to be arrested. I don't think he's going to be imprisoned, but I think he's going to be arrested. I think that's the most likely timeline. Um, but it's possible it won't happen. I mean, Magenta said that there were five primary timelines, and one was in the lead. Then there's two with, it's kind of like your hand, like in kind of order. And then there's two in lesser probability, then two in even lesser probability. She said one of the lowest probability ones of the five was that he would get imprisoned. But the big kind of gut punch, the big, where he's in the papers everywhere, that hasn't happened yet. I do think he's going to be arrested because I think they're just going to get desperate. I know that they didn't find, at the moment, they're not planning to indict him, but matter of time, I think. I mean, you heard the speech last night. They might not do it. They might not do it, but we don't know yet. We have all these timelines coming together, and it's like, well, which one's going to happen? And sometimes, you just honestly don't know. You just honestly don't know. It's going to happen. It just happens. Like, one presents itself, and then you're off to the races. That's why anybody who's saying that they know exactly what's going to happen is wrong. Like, let me make a comment about crypto, because this is one thing I can say really, really strongly. I can say this really, really strongly, because I've been feeling this on a deep level. The difficulty with crypto is that in some timelines, crypto goes up fucking ridiculous, and in other ones, it doesn't. It dies. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little less bullish on it than I used to be, because I see the Fed. I think the Fed is trying to save itself, which is why they've gone against Davos, and I think that the dollar will be reestablished in precious, being backed by gold and maybe silver too. And so if that happens, if that happens, then I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, that's going to be rough for crypto. It's going to really diminish the use case for crypto if you have sound money in the system again. And also, the main thing I see crypto for is I see it as an off-ramp if we start to have a hyperinflationary situation with the dollar. That's when I really see crypto as a safe haven. I don't know. Like, I do think in some timelines it really booms, and I think in other ones it tanks. So it's very risky. It's very risky. But everything's risky. Every single thing is risky right now. And there's a lot of high reward if you can navigate it. And I do think we are going to be using, we're going to be having systems based on crypto. So I don't know if that means that Ethereum becomes a better use case than Bitcoin because there's more things that are built on Ethereum. On the other hand, Vitaly Buterin's eating bugs and hanging out with Davos. So I don't know. And I mean that. I don't know. One thing I want to just say, though, with the Trump arrest before I move on. The consensus, I think I mentioned this before, but it seems more and more likely that what they were looking for, the deep state was looking to get documents that Trump had. And I was listening to Laura, had on them. And I was listening to Laura Eisenhower the other day, and she was talking about some interview with a satanic ritual abuse victim who basically said, and she was apparently very credible, that Trump had documentation about all this sort of sex abuse, cannibalism, etc., the kind of shit that they were engaged in, and he was holding this stuff. And so it may have been that they were trying to go after that and take those documents from him, but they didn't get them. So where are the documents? Who knows? Who knows? Manteca Respector, can you please elaborate on what's going on in Chile? Because you said in 2 days they will change their constitution. What are they going to change it to? That's very interesting. I hadn't heard anything about that. So, let's see here. Jeff, I noticed a shift a few weeks back. My PTSD involves dissociation, so I couldn't be sure, but it felt like an out-of-body experience and I had no trigger. It seemed to me like a host of things changed, but I couldn't tell for sure what they were. Yeah, 100%, Jeff. Everybody, even normies, are talking about how a lot of stuff is changing. A lot of people are changing. Like, yeah, we're letting go of a lot of stuff. We're being hit by multiple solar flares. I mean, the solar flare action is out of control. And the McAfee channel is kind of interesting. The McAfee channel is very, very interesting because it's talking about, it's really referencing a lot of the stuff with the solar flares, but apparently, well, I guess I won't go down the rabbit hole with it because I don't really know enough about this, but I'm hearing it's legit because I'm hearing that McAfee is connected to this guy named, it sounds stupid when I say it, but let's just say that McAfee's colleague was working with Admiral Rogers, who we all know, Admiral Rogers. And so even though there's a lot of weird stuff on the channel, you can tell what's coming from the channel is not, it's not just a troller, it's not just a scammer. There's something else going on. It's hard to say exactly what is going on. But yeah, a lot's changing. A lot is changing. And Jeff, that is what I feel when I sense a shift. That's exactly how it feels. Jose, I mean, 100%, the Manosphere is going to send representatives to the Constitutional Convention. I mean, the Manosphere is, frankly, going to be, a lot of the guys in the Manosphere are going to become, like, statesmen in the New World. I mean, they're going to be a significant influence on the New World. You could say it's where, the intellectual seed of the country has really gravitated towards. So, I'm talking about the broader Manosphere, obviously. When all this stuff goes away, they're going to fill in the vacuum because they're the only group that's somewhat prepared to do it. And it's amazing because I think a lot of us feel like, are we really that ready? But we'll step into the positions that we're called to step into. Frank, why Greenland? So, a couple of reasons, but first off, geographically, it's part of America, and once the royals are done, Denmark owning Greenland is not going to be persuasive. But there's a lot of important stuff in Greenland. Greenland is almost as important as Antarctica. There's a lot of ancient history stuff. There's a lot of bases there. The poles are very important. There's a lot of stuff in the Arctic. A lot of the things with the Russians, from what I understand, are connected to the Arctic. What I mean by that is that there is something in the Arctic that the Russians are, on the high level, are engaged with. Maybe some sort of ET focus, ET presence. And so I think that's why Canada and Greenland are going to be important for the United States to be connected to, because Greenland in particular has a lot of secrets. And I don't know what they are, but I know that they exist. America has a lot of bases in Greenland, So why is that? I don't think. Oh, yeah. Bap, Tate, Rogan, let them rewrite the Constitution. Well, yeah. I mean, when I say rewrite, though, I don't think that the fundamental principles are need that much revision. We just need to set things up for like the internet. The Internet Bill of Rights. And I have some ideas, but I'll spurg out on them another time. I don't want to bring them up right now, but unless you guys insist. I don't think most people realize how insane that would be because they've been talking about it since 2015. What was the last time a president in Western civilization went to prison? I don't know of an instance when it's happened. Yeah, it only happens in banana republics. What did Jetson White say? So I've been hearing this stuff thrown around a lot. Steve, can you mention that? What did Jetson White say? Because I don't know why I've heard his name multiple times in various Telegram chats. Um, the other thing I wanted to say is that notice the red background. Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. The red background for for Biden's speech was very, very interesting. It was very, very interesting. And I heard some people comment that it was maybe Red Castle because it was brick behind it. And that maybe, if you guys remember that from the Q post, it was a significant signifier of God knows what, but some progression of the plan. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, okay. So I've been seeing stuff that McAfee channel was forwarding a bunch of various messages about how you don't want to be around vax people tomorrow, September 3rd. I, I don't believe there's going to be the rapture tomorrow. I don't sense that. Um, to the extent that that's even true, that we should watch out about it tomorrow about being around vax people. The only thing I can imagine is that it's related to Trump's speech because Trump is going to be giving a big speech tomorrow. And I wonder if there's going to be anything significant announced in it. But look, the big thing here is that the speech yesterday was made by Biden and his handlers, of course, because they know things are going to get real. And so things are going to get real. I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about. I just wanted to touch base with you guys. I think that's it, though. I think that's it. I think we can call it. We'll be in touch, obviously. And stay safe tomorrow. Stay safe. I'll see you next time. Well, hold on. Let me see this, Jeff. BioClandestine said the red background was a signifier of the white hats being in charge. Yeah, I understand. I understand what clandestine is saying with it. I don't know. I mean, it is interesting that today Biden had no recollection of the speech. He said, "Oh, I've never said that about Trump supporters." It was happened yesterday. I don't know if that's an indication that this is the way I look at it. You can be in control of the board, and that can mean that you're in control, but it doesn't mean that you literally do the things for them. My explanation for it is that they are insane. I know that sounds like a cop out, but you look at what they're doing with Europe. I don't like this explanation of the white hats are gonna make sure tons of people die. The white hats are the white hats are in control, and so they're sending human wave attacks of Ukrainian soldiers to their death. I mean, that's not what good people would do. They wouldn't do that to wake people up. Yeah, let's go send a bunch of Ukrainians in the meat grinder to wake people up. It doesn't make any sense to me. The way I look at it is that the white hats are letting these people destroy themselves, backing them into a corner, and that's what this move is. I agree that the lighting and everything, it was insane. But look at Klaus Schwab. He dresses up like he's a Bond villain. You know, that's just, I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I'm not aware of Tate's stage 3 plan, but as you guys know, I always wish Andrew the best. So, all right, guys. Well, I love you too, Jeff. I love all you guys, and I will see you on the next show. Maybe probably next week. I think next week for sure, unless nothing happens. Nothing happens, then maybe not. But if something happens, I'll see you then. All right.